Hello, and welcome back to another episode of BTY. My name is Michael, and as always, I'm joined by my very good friend, Daniel. And this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And because of this, we wanted to take the chance to have a little conversation about what we think are two of the most pressing issues that are actually causing men to struggle mentally, and perhaps also provide some ways that, fellow young men can actually counter these things and start to find mental health and peace and not struggle with this one, because it is such an issue worldwide. But then, first of all, to get into it, how are you doing yourself mentally at the moment? Like, how's things for yourself?
I would say I'm in a very good place actually at this point. I've been grinding a lot this year. There's been so much going on in my life, but yet I've been thriving off of that. It's been a good experience. I started off the year well, and the year's going well now. So I must say, mentally, I'm feeling that I'm in a good place. I always try and use certain coping methods so that I make sure that I stay in a good space. I know that when I came back Sunday afternoon, I was quite tired from what was happening over the last week and the weekend, the SOE games that I was attending for RA. But at this point, I am actually feeling better because I use exercise to help me out. So I went for a jog and I was able to get up my social battery again. So yeah, like if I look at me personally, I like to recharge when I'm alone or doing things like jogging. Yeah, so that's one way to have gotten to a good place and kind of keep myself stable. I always try and make sure that I keep things balanced. But how have you been doing, man?
Yeah, brother, I think as well, the older you get, you have more experience and history to back yourself up on, in terms of we've learned, now how to deal with mental
Yeah,
challenges and challenges that come with life. So yeah, I've also been in a good place. Obviously, yeah, I think the one thing that you could say is a challenge at the moment is just being mentally like present all the time. In that, yeah, you can often become quite overwhelmed with all these things that are requiring time of you, and you
yeah,
can become very focused on work, for example, and that can start to affect the way that you maybe just not as mentally present when you aren't working, for example. So yeah, I just need to work on maybe balancing my my attention and all of that between all the
mm,
different focuses in my life, brother. But yeah, these
yeah.
are mental challenges that come along, and yeah, that's why we wanted to take the chance to actually talk about it today, because yeah, I mean, both you and I, and any young person, whether it be a man or woman, has had ups and downs, in their mental health. But I
Yeah.
think we really need to, being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, we really need to take these opportunities to just not leave young guys behind, who perhaps are going through these mental struggles for the first time and really don't know how to deal with them, man. So,
Mm.
Dan, I think one of the most pressing issues that is causing a lot of men to suffer in their mental health is a lack of community and isolation. So, what would you say causes this, and how can men start to break free from it as well?
Yeah, so that's a very good point and a very good question. So I would say that personally, how I've experienced a lack of community would be that us as men, we typically have quite a big ego. So we would want to be around people when we're doing well, but we don't like to show our vulnerabilities. So that causes us to try and take a step back and move into our shells because we don't want people seeing that we're hurt, we're limping, or whatever that could be in our personal lives. So it could be
It's good,
after
bro.
a breakup, it could be after we've lost a job or an interview didn't go well. But ways to remedy these issues or this big issue of a lack of community would be then to join clubs and communities, for example the BTY community, where you're always getting a bit of positive reinforcement. So I know that how our BTY community works is I would sometimes send messages. Michael sometimes sends some videos or links that we watch on just how to improve as men and get to a certain place in our lives, a place
Yeah,
of success. And then Sipo is also adding a lot of good messages on every Monday afternoon. So these are things that help us, that even when we're going through difficult times and others around us might not know, we're still getting some good pieces of information in a positive sense from these sort of communities and clubs. Like, you might be playing a bit of rugby or soccer or chess or jogging clubs, where you know that you're responsible to be around those people that are also within the clubs during certain times, so that even if you're having an off week or an off month, that there's something that's keeping you accountable to always be going to these clubs and these activities being offered
so
by
good, man.
them. And that helps you to not isolate as much. And then, yeah, I would also say intentionally looking for the right people to be around, friends that you can confide in, that you know would be honest, but also would be empathetic enough to for you to confide in, and for you to know that they aren't going to speak about these issues that you addressed with everyone else. So what would you say, Michael, is some positive remedies that you personally implemented in your life, or that you can say that this is something that people have studied and see that that works?
Yeah, man. Just before I hop into that,
Yeah.
just want to say it's such a good point that you made in terms of attending like joining clubs and communities. Just
Mm-hmm.
because I think some people, and I know even myself, you can
Yeah,
almost sit like look down on doing that kind of thing, like joining a club or a community.
that's
You
true.
think like, oh, I've got friends that I know. I don't need to attend these kind of things, and you might
Yeah,
view it as a bit like corny or cringy, or who knows. But yeah,
that's true.
I've seen it. I've seen it in my local community in exactly examples that you mentioned. Stuff like jogging and running communities is a big thing in my
Mm,
area.
yeah,
And you might think these things are stupid initially, but they actually, they'll provide you with that community that you need. And yeah, definitely not something to be looked down upon, but actually they can really really help you. And that consistent community in your life, like you say, man, is something that to benefit and gain from a lot. But
yeah,
yeah, one other thing, bro, that I would just add to that, in terms of combating this lack of community and isolation that is plaguing men at the moment,
yeah.
is just to also attend events. I actually attended an event last week, which was to do with entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was basically an event where young entrepreneurs can get together and network, and as well as hear from others who have been in the game. And these kind of events, it's funny, if you don't know about them, you probably wouldn't know that they're
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that you wouldn't know that they're happening if you weren't looking for these kind of things. But you should actually go out of your way to look for events that
Mm,
would bring together other young people, whether it be other young men, or even other young women as well. Just bringing that
yeah,
community into your life will be so valuable. So yeah, look
sure.
look for these kind of events
Mm,
that will just be a gathering of like-minded people that you could actually gain community from.
yeah.
And in terms of combating that isolation, I think you just have to, as you mentioned, man, instead of when things are going wrong, just start to isolate yourself and not be around others. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, I remember hearing a quote a while back, and it was something along the lines of, isolating yourself is never the right answer. And I think
Yeah.
just always keep that in mind. So when things are starting to go wrong, like you say, you'll almost automatically start to close yourself up and go into your shell. But just
Mm,
remember that that's like it's never the right answer, and it's never actually going to help you in that situation. It might make
Yeah.
you feel better, yeah, but it's not actually going to help you in terms of coming out of that situation or getting in the right place after a while.
Mm.
So yeah, what I would just say is just don't close yourself off, specifically from the close friends that you already have in your life and your
Yeah.
family. Yeah, when you're going through a tough time, you might not want to be going to super social events, every day, but definitely the last thing you want to do is close yourself off from your close friends and family. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say definitely avoid that at all costs, and
Sure.
always
That.
keep those, always at least keep yourself open to those people, even in the difficult times.
Yeah. So that was a very good point, Michael. And then to get into something somewhat of a different conversation, the emasculation of men. We've seen that in the trends. I don't know, you can tell us a bit more about South Africa, but I know here in Namibia there is a lot of content or a lot of media that's going around speaking about men and how they've just been committing a lot of suicide in this last little while within this month of men's mental awareness. So we note we noted or I understood that a big point in that is that men are being emasculated when especially they tend to not carry out the traditional roles or they might still be on the come up. So usually it
Yeah.
is between the age of 20 and 29 when men are committing suicide here in Namibia. So tell us a bit more about the background there in South Africa and why you think this is something that's happening to men.
Yeah, so I think what you touched on there is good in that the emasculation of men happens a lot, especially when, as you mentioned, they are not providing those traditional roles, that being the sole provider. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as a man is obviously not the sole
Yeah,
provider in the family, then they can start to become emasculated by friends and family. I think this is something that we see. Um, Even in, you have to be careful of it yourselves. In that we're looking down on people, looking down on men who
yeah,
might be in a situation where they're not earning much and they maybe aren't able to provide for others. It doesn't help them or the situation at all by starting to
yeah.
emasculate them and starting to make them feel like less of a man because of this. So you have to be
Mm-hmm.
very careful of these kind of things, and this is
Yeah,
what is unfortunately causing men to suffer with their mental health and actually lead to those drastic measures as you mentioned them. And I know it's the same worldwide, bro, and it's very sad to see
yeah.
that so many men are resorting to taking their own life,
Mm.
over this kind of struggle. And as you mentioned, there's definitely talk about it, and
Yeah.
people are trying to counteract it. There's definitely been an increase in the amount of
Mm.
people speaking about men's mental health. So I don't think that's maybe as much the issue anymore. But I think the
Yeah.
way that we are tackling it is still not the best. And hopefully these kind of conversations can help. Of course, that's our goal
Mm.
here. But yeah, but I think as you mentioned, even
Yeah.
being still on the come up. I mean, we've spoken on this
Yeah.
channel, before about how long it takes for a man to make something of himself and become successful, and we've spoken about, just how that
Mm-hmm.
is. But as you mentioned, on that journey,
Yeah.
you don't need other people who are then, shaming you for not being that far ahead, and that's often why us men are so desperate to become
Mm-hmm.
successful, because until you are successful you're always just getting shamed,
Yeah.
and or you feel that pressure, I think, from others
Mm.
to be successful. And I think
Yeah.
the main thing is that you actually don't feel valued until you are successful. Yeah. I think that's definitely one of the main things.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah, so
point.
these are all examples, bro.
Yeah.
Another thing that's actually seeing a lot of talk online at the moment, with regards to this, is how culturally men and masculinity is just being
Mm.
portrayed so differently. I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on it in terms of
Yeah.
like how you've noticed that men have been emasculated culturally, whether it be in like movies or TV shows.
Mm.
What would you have to say about that, brother?
Yeah. So we can probably take the most popular example. If we look at The Simpsons, that I can't remember that
Homer,
guy's
Homer
name. I don't
Simpson.
watch it actually, but what I've seen before. Yeah, Homer. So Homer is portrayed as this like stupid American guy that goes to work and he's providing, but it's like he's very stupid and he doesn't get things right, and somehow the mom is more smart and she seems to be having things in place and he's always making mistakes. So that's one side of it. But then you also see
I
that
think that was where it all started.
within the internet, yeah, I think that's where, where it could have all started. What happens is that if a man is being masculine, it's being portrayed as toxic. And yeah, we know that things have changed and it's progressed, and it's not just more on the traditional roles, but when a guy speaks towards those sort of roles, taking the lead and being the head of the house, it's looked down upon by women because obviously they don't want to be seen as
Yeah,
worth less than guys, and they aren't worth less than guys. It's just there is different roles that each party plays, and when we try and do each role the same, there's also an imbalance that comes to play, and that's also why society is struggling. Like, women tend to not be finding suitable partners these days, and
yeah,
guys feel like girls standards are too high, and it's becoming a loss for both
yeah.
genders, like male and female. So I don't know when it became a battle between like male and females. It's we're supposed to be working together and
Yeah, man.
like enjoying each other, but yeah, I would say that's how I've seen it coming to front. So that like when a guy is being truly masculine, it might be spoken of in a negative way, and we know the feminine agenda is being pushed a lot, and it is needed for women to be empowered, but I feel like the male child is being left behind, and there's so many more ladies that successfully make it out of high school. They finish school. There's guys that don't finish school, and also there's more ladies graduating from university than
Yeah,
guys. So there's something that might be how, I don't know, the school system is more easy for girls, but that couldn't be because you find successful guys as well. So when you look at this, then you do see that somehow men are being left behind, and they you might see successful guys, yes, there will still be, but often we look at like a handful of successful guys and make it out to be that all guys are
that's true,
in
man.
this place, but then you'd meet the average Joe and he might be in a rough place in life. So we need to sort of look at ways that we can look at the positive side of masculinity, like the healthy masculinity, something that we're also trying to promote here on our YouTube channel and through the male conference that we recently
Yep,
had earlier this year, pushing guys to also be masculine but in a good way, not always trying to be dominant through their strength, but also through their mental capacity. And yeah, there's ways to being a man. It doesn't have to be violent and it doesn't
of
have to
course.
be abusive. So we know that guys do play a role in what's currently happening in society, but we should try and have a positive outlook and try and support both males and females. That's just like personally coming from my side. But yeah, it's been a good conversation, and I think these are conversations we should have, and we shouldn't be afraid of having on like on these platforms, because these are daily struggles that we face, and by having these conversations we can move towards taking action and looking for solutions. That we've mentioned a
Agreed.
couple of solutions today, but there's a lot more on even breaking the stigma of a guy not being able to open up and talk about what's going on within his head and within his heart, being able to talk to a friend and or a counselor and really say what's going on and
Mm.
mention your struggles and finding a way to work through them and strengthening those areas that might be weaknesses in your
No,
life, man.
exactly that, bro. I think all we can do is start to change things in our circles. That's all we can do. You
Yeah.
can't, you can campaign for
Yeah.
worldwide change, but realistically, the only way it is going to change is like if we start to change the narrative, as we mentioned there, that men are getting emasculated for all these different reasons. I think just
Yeah.
stay away from doing these kind of things in your own life, and encourage others to do the same. And
Yeah.
as you say, by doing this, we can start to actually not leave the man, the boy child, as you've mentioned before, man, behind, and actually start to raise up young men,
Yeah.
and raise them out of this mental health crisis that we are seeing, brother. But yeah, but it's been really cool to have this
Yes.
conversation. Yeah, I hope
That's so
that
good.
this has raised awareness, but also just brought to light some topics that are some of the real causes, behind mental health issues within young men today. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this conversation. It's been lots of fun. And Dan, a little sneak peek, or what's it called, an insider for our viewers. But soon enough, both of us will be in the same location, and we'll be able to make some content together. So looking forward to that. It's been a while since we've been able to do that kind of content, and I think it's really the kind of content that we would like to do at this channel. So looking forward to linking up with you soon, brother.
Sure. So keen for it, man.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of BTY, and we'll see you in the next one. Much love.